Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we are looking at a new Shaymin card. A very interesting new Shaymin card with a really fun ability that doesn't look amazing at first glance, but I'm a really big fan of this. I think it's got a lot of uses, and I think it's going to see a lot of play. I've seen a couple very early comments about this card going, oh, it's rubbish. And I'm looking at the ability, and I'm like, no, this is good. I like this quite a lot. Let's have a look, ladies and gentlemen. It is a Shaymin, and of course, it's been revealed and translated by the lovely David Hochmann, Mr. RappelmannTCG himself, because, you know, he has become our go-to. You'll know that by now. He is a lovely man. And, I mean, firstly, look at the artwork. It's kind of adorable and kind of a little bit weird. But that's not the most important thing. It's got 80 HP, which means that if it ever gets a reprint, I think it will in the fairly near future. You're going to be able to use a level ball to search it out, so that's a good thing. Retreat cost of 1 is nice and low, which is all good. Weakness to fire is not good, especially with Baby Volcanion, hey Nick, that will destroy this very quickly indeed. Being a grass Pokemon does mean you're hitting weakness against something like Lycanroc, but you're not doing any damage with this Pokemon ever, so it really doesn't matter what you're hitting for weakness. And being a grass Pokemon does mean you can use stuff like Ether Paradise Conservation Area to give yourself just a little bit of extra bulk, but this is not a bulky Pokemon. And it is not an attacking Pokemon, but you know what? It's pretty gosh darn useful anyway. The ability here is what really excites me, and it says, once during your turn, if this is your active Pokemon, you may draw a card. If you do, your opponent may draw a card. So you get a choice, you don't have to draw. And then if you draw, your opponent gets a choice, but they don't have to. If you don't draw, your opponent doesn't get a choice. Sounds fine to me. Now, first of all, drawing extra cards is always good. That's our starting point here. Something like a Lowland Sandslash just plain draws you a card. Why has a Lowland Sandslash not seen any real play so far? The answer is very simple. It's a stage 1. If there was a basic that had an ability that was just once per turn draw a card, it would be amazing. People play Unknown from Ancient Origins, and that you had to put on your bench and then discard in order to draw a card, and that was a one-time thing. We don't have a basic Pokemon that says just draw a card. It would frankly be too good. It would see 2 or 3 in every single deck, and bench space would start becoming an issue. But other than that, it would be amazing. We play Oranguru, and that draws until we've got 3 cards in our hand. And a lot of the time, we're not drawing any cards of Oranguru because we're not getting our hand size small enough in order to be able to take advantage of this. And even when we are, the times we're drawing 2 or 3 cards here is very, very slim indeed. We basically play it to try and draw the odd card. So as a starting point here, any Pokemon that draws a card is a very good thing. Now, the fact that it's got to be active is a bit of a pain in the neck. You're probably going to want to pop a Float Stone onto Shaymin so that you can retreat him. Essentially, anytime you play a Guzma, you've got to put a Pokemon in the active. So you put Shaymin in the active, draw a card, and then you retreat. Anytime you have a Pokemon KO'd, you pop it in the active so that you can draw a card and then retreat. It's not ideal, but it works. Escape Rope is another way you would get a Pokemon into the active. Now, how many of you out there remember the Slurpuff from Phantom Forces? Slurpuff, I always get that wrong. It had the lovely tasting ability. It was a stage 1. Once during your turn, you can draw a card, but if it's active, you draw 1 more card. So the idea with that was always to pop it into the active whenever you could, because popping it in the active would allow you to draw 2 cards rather than 1. It was played with Seismitoad, and back when Lysander's trump card was legal before it got banned, this was absolutely amazing. But it, you know, Lysander's trump card got banned and it kind of fell off the map a little bit. The point is, drawing extra cards is always good. And let's face it, a couple of days ago we talked about Macargo. Macargo is a phenomenal card that says that once per turn you can search your deck for any card and put it on top of your deck. It is just a functional reprint of the one from EX Deoxys. And I said in that it is a phenomenal card with a phenomenal ability, but you are going to need a way to draw those cards. It's all very well and good putting any card on top of your deck, but you're then going to have a way to actually draw that card to make the most of it. And I said in that video, at least I'm fairly sure I said in that video, that what we really want is a basic Pokemon that allowed you to draw a card. Now this isn't perfect, like I say, it's got to be in the active. Ideally, we would just have a basic Pokemon that sits on the bench and allows us to draw one card per turn. That card would be an absolutely amazing, hands down 5 Wassy card, and I would feel like I was not doing it justice. This is not the same. It's got to be in the active. That's a bit of a pain. And we'll talk about your opponent getting a card in a minute. It's not always a bad thing. But as it stands, I like this. Sometimes you want to just draw an extra card. If you're playing Macago, you definitely want to draw an extra card. And we've all been there. You need to draw that DCE in order to get an attack off. You need to draw that Guzma in order to win the game. You really want to draw that rare candy because you've got to play a Professor Sycamore and you're about to discard 3 of your Empoleon. In all of these situations, drawing 1 extra card would be amazing. Unless, of course, you draw your 4th Empoleon, in which case, you know, scoop and go to game 2. I love this ability because drawing extra cards is always good. Having said that, you've got to give your opponent the chance to draw a card as well. Well, there's plenty of times when your opponent won't want to draw a card. Now, the annoying thing is that in those situations, your opponent will probably just not draw a card. But you never know, you might be able to get them. Maybe they're not thinking. And worst case scenario, your opponent doesn't draw a card, so you've just drawn a card. Let's go through a couple of examples, shall we? How about the Poltergeist attack? The Poltergeist attack, most recently seen on the Trevenant from Guardians Rising, does 30 damage for each trainer card your opponent has in their hand. Well, if you use Poltergeist, your opponent wants as few trainers in their hand as possible, so drawing a random card with a Shaymin is not something they are going to want to do. How about decking out? If your opponent has no cards in their deck at the beginning of their turn such that they cannot draw a card, they lose the game. So they won't want to draw a card there. Again, I wish this was your opponent had to draw a card, because if it was, you could hurt them with Poltergeist. You could try and deck them out. One more example I'll give you. How about Hue? Hue is a not very commonly played supporter card from Boundaries Crossed, and each player draws or discards cards until they have 5 in their hand. If you get your opponent to draw an extra card using Shaymin, you could force them into some trickier discards with Hue. Just something to bear in mind. Now, there is an attack here as well, and this is also pretty useful. 1 Grass Energy, attach 2 basic energy cards from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon. So it is not to 2 individuals, it is 2 energy to 1 Pokemon. Now, you're only actually getting a net gain of a single energy here. Having said that, Regice only gets us 1 extra energy, Yveltal only gets us 1 extra energy, and obviously, I meant Registeel. Sorry, Registeel. So, we don't mind getting only 1 extra energy, and if you can have this survive for a turn and use it twice, then you're putting 1 energy on Shaymin to get an extra 4 energy onto the field. And remember, it is for basic energy, not for basic grass energy. So you could even play this in any deck with rainbow energy and then attach any 2 basic energy of your choice to one of your Pokemon. I mean, we've always said that doing extra damage is always good. It's not relevant to Shaymin. But drawing extra cards is almost always good, and Shaymin does that. And getting extra energy is almost always good. Something like a Gardevoir, maybe you want to control your energy a little bit. I like Shaymin, and I like this attack. You've got to be a little bit careful, but getting 2 extra energy onto one of your Pokemon? Yeah. Why would you not want to do that? I mean, it's a bit clunky to fit into those decks, but how about getting 2 extra energy onto a Lycanroc so you can Claw Slash really easily the next turn? How about getting 2 extra energy on a Buzzwole to open up its big attacks? How about getting 2 extra energy onto a Golisopod, either GX to use Armor Press, or the non-GX to use the attack that really preys on those GX Pokemon? I think there's a lot of uses for this attack, and I think there'll be plenty of games where you want to use it. I think you play Shaymin for the ability. I think the ability is what we're using it for, and it's literally a basic Pokemon. It's one space in your deck, and especially with Macargo, it's awesome. But I think if you're playing it for the ability, and you're playing either Grass or Rainbow Energy, I think this attack in the early game here and there could be pretty nice to get you set up. I like Shaymin. I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. The ability is great, but you've got to be in the active, which knocks it down a little bit. And your opponent might get a really big advantage from drawing a card as well, although there are ways to work that to our advantage. And the attack is really nice, but you won't be able to use it all that often, and there'll be too many games where your opponent is able to knock out the Shaymin. You attach 1 energy to Shaymin and then 2 to your other Pokemon. So between 3 and 4 sounds fair to me. Also, do remember you've got to have the basic energy in hand in order to use this ability, but even something like a Humble Professor's Letter will hook you up here. Or a Rabombi, if you want something you can use every turn. Or an Oricorio, if you don't mind having a single-use ability. There's ways to get this energy, is what I'm saying. So I like this Shaymin, although there are a few issues with it. I want to know what you think about this Shaymin, so let me know in the comment section. Go nuts! But be nice. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassie, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and so on, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio where you can do just that. And do make sure you're following over at Wassie Plays because, you know, there's cool stuff on there as well. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.